Good morning, everyone. With the raspy voice, this is David Meltzer here on Office Hours with my mentor, friend, associate, philanthropist, buddy, co-author, all the above, learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. Hey, Blaine, how are you?
Hey, buddy, I'm doing well, bright and early this morning on this coast.
Yeah, well, I like your hat, and you got my memo. We've been matching a lot, and we got a really extraordinary guest this morning to start us off. And Bruce McEver is here, founder of Berkshire Capital, and he has a book that came out this April, and it's a personal journey, many paths, a poet's journey through love, death, and Wall Street. And Bruce, welcome to Office Hours.
I'm glad to be here. Nice
We're happy. We're happy to have you so early. So this is just a blessing. That's why I was wearing my blessed test at 5 a.m. To know how blessed I am. But
it's earlier for you than me.
It is, and I know you were drinking some coffee.
I'm really impressed.
That's just not because you're older than us, so it's all right.
Oh, come on.
But to that journey, I'm blessed, and Blaine is blessed to have a really important relationship that I think a lot of people miss out on, and that's an intimate partner in their life, and the impact of a partnership to me and Blaine means so much. And I wanted to have you on because your book does illustrate personally and illuminate the importance of that relationship. I thought maybe we'd start with that journey itself of love, death, and Wall Street, and how your significant other played such a significant role in that journey.
Well, it's important that who that companion is and who your partners are. I've always worked with partners in my life, and with the exception of one, I've maybe a couple others, but they've been extraordinary, and I still work with them today in the things that I'm working with. I just don't think you can get through life alone. I was incredibly fortunate to meet a very beautiful and talented woman who was my soulmate for 32 years. The woman was a child prodigy singer, and she was Robert Shaw's soloist when she was 16. Just a very gifted woman, and she was also really funny. She could have been a comedian, and so she combined the two and became a Gilbert and Sullivan diva, and sang all of that, all those operas. But it carried me through most of the first part of my life. I had a relationship with a doctor thereafter, and she went off with someone that I introduced her to later, and now I'm with a wonderful woman, Ann McNulty, who has suffered the same loss that I did, about the same age, and is an extraordinary woman in every accord. She's on the board of the Aspen Institute, and is an extraordinary philanthropist and quite a force. Anyway, she's a real partner, and it's hard to go through life without someone to balance you off. It's the yin and the yang. We weren't meant to be alone. I had lunch yesterday with a good friend who just lost his wife and was considering suicide and such. Just hang in there. He's talking about how I found a place in Switzerland where I'm going, don't do this. If you check around, if we go around this room where we're sitting here in Florida and begin to interview people, half of them are going to have suffered that loss. Death is part of that loss of part of life. We turn, when you get to be my age, as you guys pointed out this morning, You go through a lot of chapters. You go through a lot of chapters, and I got to say, for the most part, I've had some pretty good ones. They're in that book. I had to write that down, and it took me something like 6 years. I started at Stanford with a guy named John Evans, who teaches memoir out there, who had lost his wife from a bear attack, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
And anyway, it was the whole book was about 600 pages. I've got it to 350 and added some poetry back in the thing. And if you start reading the book, it just grabs you, I'm told. I've got a couple of calls today. This is a year after the book has come out, of friends that have called me and said, I've read the book and I've got some notes here and I want to talk to you about it. It's going through it. This is the same thing I had with this lunch yesterday. This guy's going through the chapters of his wife dying and saying, I was on chapter 5 and I noted this parallel or something. So anyway, there's a lot in that book.
Yeah,
and I understand you've read it, so
well, I know Blaine's lived it, and as well. So I, would love for Blaine to share some thoughts and questions as well.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, number one, for writing the book. I have not yet read it, and I am very much looking forward to reading it. I lost my wife of 22 years, 13 years ago now, and the experience, and this is where I want to go with this, I think, Bruce, is, the experience could have gone one of two directions, and I don't want to be binary with it, but, you talk about your friend yesterday, the grief that comes with that. We're not used to, in this society, of processing that kind of information, because we aren't used to accepting that death is a natural part of living a full life. We shun away from death in this culture. And the other way we can go, and you reference this in your noticing here about the hierophany, this epiphany, this awakening to something else. And that's what I experienced when Pam died, was this opening to the realization that life is so bloody rich. And I didn't know how rich it was until that loss appeared. So the idea, of taking that and using it to guide me the rest of my life is really close to home for me. I'd be interested, from your perspective, as you founded Berkshire Capital in '83. How do you keep coming back to this? Because I know for myself, I do keep referencing that event as I move myself forward in my life. And I'm married to an amazing woman today. She's just much the same as you're talking about your current wife now. She's just this force of nature, this force of nurture. And I know that I wouldn't have found her had I not gone on this journey. I know that would not have occurred. So I'm just in long set up for this question, but how have you used that event to keep yourself on a path that has been so rich and so profound?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your life, for your loss, and wow, you know what I'm talking about. The grief can take you down. I'm watching this friend of mine, and I'm going, I just don't let it take you down.
Mm-hmm.
And but the day after my wife died, I had a hierophany. I mean, I had this the bright light, the thing, and a voice and something, and I couldn't figure out what the hell it was. It said many paths. There are many paths. And then I realized that was what I really wanted to do, was go back to school. And I went back to Harvard Divinity School and sort of got my academic degree. And that's what I'm doing. I have a thing called the Religious Literacy Foundation now, but there are many paths. In other words, that richness that wouldn't have opened up. I was on one path and I was to take another path, or it seemed like it. I mean, you have to just listen to, first of all, it's not our plan. You know, it's God's plan.
Is that true?
It's something much beyond us, and you have to listen to the plan. You know, the Taoists think that there's nothing really wrong with the world. We're all going, woe is me, and, you know, oh, the elections, and, you know, all this or whatever. There's nothing wrong with the world. We're just, the world is in sync. You've got to get in sync with the world. You've got to listen to the world and what it is. You know, there was something else, that there was another plan for me. And I was trying to tell my parents, there's another plan for you. There's something, you know, the reason you're here, you're left here, you've got another mission. And I had this amazing dream after it was about a month after my first wife died. She came down the road with these two bears beside her in a princess dress. She was always in costumes and stuff. And she's dancing around and she's looking at me, and I'm not getting close because of these bears. And she goes, you know, what are you doing? I'm here. I've been sent to save the animals. That's my mission. What's your mission? You're just grieving. Get over this grief and get on with life. That was in a dream. Yeah. Whoa. You know,
as you started to study divinity at Harvard, and, you know, trying to rationalize what's a difficult faith-based perception of death. To me, being a father of 4 children and just absolutely, like you two, you know, in love beyond what my expectations were with my own wife, death is probably the greatest representation of fear. And when I studied my brother's a fairly famous Harvard rabbi, so I know that you two would get along very, very well. And I have in-depth conversations about a simple fact of being protected and promoted. And death represents punishment, as Blaine suggested earlier, that it's the most difficult thing in our culture, because we give it a meaning of punishment where other times in other places they don't. I'm curious, with the academic pursuit that you had in divinity and understanding God or source or Muhammad or Jesus or Buddha or Joseph Smith or whatever source that people look to in faith, that how do we at least open a mind to the idea that death can be a promotion and a protection, not necessarily a punishment?
Well, that's a big one. Who's your brother?
Scott Meltzer.
Okay.
But he's in San Diego.
Yeah. Well, I think death is really part of life. I think there's a famous story about the Buddha. It's in my book, where a woman came to him who was clinging to a child she wouldn't let go, who had died. So they took the child from her, and the Buddha said to her, I want you to go around the village, and every house you find that hasn't been touched by death, bring me a mustard seed. And at the end of the week, she came back and he said, you don't have any mustard seed. And she said, no. And she became his first nun. So he was trying to teach her that that death is really part of our life. We just don't look at it like that. We look at it like it is, you know, the religion, I think, have misinterpreted that's a punishment. So I don't know. I think it can be a punishment if you let it take you down. It's, you know, it's up to you to rise above it and go on with whatever that course is. It's just I don't know. Our culture is we don't want to look at it.
Yeah. It's very well. You were aptly named, as Blaine Bartlett was aptly named, as I was aptly named. My name means beloved servant, and I love that your name is Bruce McEver, and giving us that idea of the abundant infinity that we live within, and obviously the relationships that you have through your poet's journey. And I enjoy that side of it as well, to allow for the co-creation when we read poetry through Love, Death, and Wall Street. If you haven't read the book, it's a memoir, Many Paths, Bruce McEver. You can go to brucemcever.com as well. Bruce, come join us again. We could talk for days, months, even years, I'm sure, between the three of us. And
Absolutely.
this is absolutely a teaser program. We do it on purpose so people want to come back. So thank you for helping us stimulate interest.
Thank you, David.
We appreciate
Stay
you.
safe, Bruce.
Nice talking with you. Thank you so much.
See you soon. Thank you.
God bless you all.
Bless you.
Well, thank you.
Stay blessed. All right. What a great guest.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah. I'm sure it resonated greatly with you. And I contemplate those issues probably daily, of an ultimate perspective of source of my faith is relative to death at all times, and especially not my own, because I'm not afraid of death. I'm not ready for it, but I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
But I can't say
I just don't want to be there when it happens.
Yeah, right. But I can't say that I don't have fear for others, which is really, a core of ignorant arrogance, that I would be more afraid for others for the same thing I'm not afraid of. My logical mathematical mind said, wait, this doesn't equate, does not equate. But trying to process that, not a bad thing. Anyway, we are going to move forward in a different direction. Another great topic, but much easier to discuss. We got Richie Rich here, Rich Razgatis. They call him the Raz, and we'll give him and Raz him here. CEO of Flowwater, drinkflowwater.com. Obviously, water is a huge issue. It's Rich. It's one of those things, like I say, we need food, sleep, and water. And if you're not paying attention to those three things, you're missing part of this journey. And so many people take for granted what other people are wishing for. But as we see, our water is maybe, Rich, you could tell me, what 80-90% of our being is water, and we're destroying that water. And if we don't have it to regenerate ourselves, then we'd be in a difficult position. I'd love for you to kind of give us the state of your perspective of, where we are in the world with better water, safe water, because it is a critical life issue.
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me on today. It's nice to see both of you. Yeah, you're correct. Over 70% of our bodies are water, and the fundamental issue that's happening in the world of water today is we're seeing, in any developed nation that has access to water. So it's important to separate, countries and marketplaces that have no access or are kind of dry savannas where they're not having the availability of water. But most of the world actually has access to drinking water, and most of it is becoming highly polluted. And so we're seeing now the result of decades of a lot of human introduced chemicals that are now accumulating in our drinking water. And so I talk mostly about the United States. So we're a worldwide company, and over 90% of tap water in the United States, for example, has over 300 microplastics per liter that we're literally drinking. So we are now literally drinking our bottled water when we're drinking any water, including tap water, including filtered tap water. And that's just one example. The other example on the other extreme of it is PFAS, which are these forever chemicals that were used to make Teflon and Gore-Tex once upon a time. There was a recent EWG study that was done, and something like 40 different site locations tested out of the United States. 39 had exorbitantly high levels of PFAS in their drinking water. It's basically assumed at this point that every single human being has highly detectable levels of PFAS in their blood. It never goes away. It never goes away. It's like lead. So we have an issue. We now have what is becoming a fast crisis in drinking water. And I compare it to cigarettes. I'll end on this, but I compare it to the cigarettes, which is you don't have a crisis with smoking cigarettes on your first 50th, 500th cigarette. You just it's incrementalism, like anything in life, good and bad. And this is what's happening with tap water. And it's time to raise the alarm bells, and people can take action, but it's also time to raise the alarm bells because 70% of us are made up of water. So it's an essential element to our day-to-day life.
I live up here on an island in the Northwest, and we're serviced by a well. It's a private well. I maintain it and that sort of thing. I share it with my neighbor. And we've had it tested. We've had it tested for forever chemicals. We've had it tested for just about anything we can imagine. And right now we're doing fine. And there's an end to this. Power went out. We had a hellacious storm up here a couple of days ago. Lost power for 5 days. And when the power goes out, that's an inconvenience. There's no question about that. The house is dark and it gets cold. But what's also interesting is the pump runs on electricity. And without the pump, we had no water. And where I'm going to with this is I was more inconvenienced, and I will use the word inconvenience because this is a first world problem in this case. I was more inconvenienced by not having access to the water than I was to not having access to the light and the heat and that sort of thing. And we just came, my wife and I had just come back from Africa where they're experiencing this, decades long drought. And as we flew into the area that we were in, I was noticing the Mara River because we were up in the Masai Mara. And the Mara River was significantly lower than it had been 3 years ago when I was there, pre-pandemic. And people were still marching to the river to scoop water to bring it back to the home. And this water, to your point, is so polluted. It is so infested with all kinds of things. So with flow water, you said you're worldwide. How are and these people don't have access to tap water? What's your solution, and how are you working in these areas of the world where that kind of potable water isn't available?
It's a good question. So there's a couple answers that I'll give you a really specific one in that use case that you just went through. So my company, which is a team of 50 people in Denver, Colorado, as well as throughout the United States, is a division called Flow Water, which was recently merged about 6 months ago with a Swedish company by the name of Blue Water, founded in the same year, very similar principles and mission. And so through these two companies together, we now have a worldwide platform of products to address consumer drinking water needs wherever they work, rest, and play. Most of our focus in the United States has been in B2B. With our newly formed family merger partnership, Blue Water, there are products that we have developed that are emergency systems that, for example, in fact, several of them were donated to Ukraine and front lines of Ukraine many months ago so that they could take brackish water that was not safe to drink, that was possibly full of viruses and bacteria, and forget the pesticides and the herbicides, but I mean, you've got just serious issues when you're on the front lines of any situation or a disaster relief. In those suitcases, essentially, of Blue Water could be filtering water for 3,000 people a day. And so that's an example of being able to drop in on, an emergency or a disaster relief basis, as an example. The challenges of getting water to places that are effectively dry deserts that don't even have access to water, they're more complicated. It's a bit of a separate problem that various companies, including us, at some point will solve more for. But we right now have a crisis of drinking water that's affecting 70 to 90% of Americans and well over half of the world. And so I think it's one of those things where our focus is on, in particularly the United States, we've got a problem called you can't trust your tap water. People don't want to drink it. Therefore, people drink bottled water. And this bottled water is now literally polluting oceans, lakes, rivers, and landfills. 90% don't get recycled. And now the average American drinks 1 credit card's worth of plastic every week, drinks or eats. And so, in fact, there's more chemicals that go into the making of plastics, 10,000 known chemicals, than there are into the making of a cigarette, 6,000 chemicals into a cigarette. And so we are now literally drinking these environmental cigarettes. And our focus is solve the problem solve some of the biggest problems that are affecting the biggest number of people, while also trying to do good in other parts of the world that, need access to clean drinking water for just survival.
Yeah.
And with the last few minutes here, you offer the world's first and only refill station. What does that look like? Is there different sizes? Scope to, you said you were B2B. Is it for hospitality, restaurants? Where and how is this implemented today? And where do you see it going in the future with these refill stations?
So we've got approximately 10,000 flow water refill stations throughout everywhere in the United States, all 50 states. There's 6 other countries that have flow water refill stations. They're primarily going into hotels, schools, gyms, corporations, big manufacturing facilities, basically anywhere where you would have seen a water fountain, a water cooler, a 5-gallon jug, or someone that's giving out copious amounts of bottled water. So it's a 6-foot tall device packed with purification technology. And it can take a flow water refill station, basically lines into any tap water line and runs through the 7X stage of filters and purifiers. And then out comes flow water after it's done that in this 6-foot by 18-inch by 16-inch piece of physical hardware. And so we kind of took the approach of, well, from a design perspective, if Apple or Tesla or someone that was innovating a category, how would they approach redesigning the water fountain? So we effectively did that same type of methodology towards how do we reinvent a water fountain that doesn't purify. They're generally seen as gross and disgusting. People don't like them. And we don't have a problem in the United States called, if I could only find a faucet. We have a problem called, I don't like or I don't trust what's coming out of that faucet. Yeah. And that's really what we solve for, is how do you find people, how do you find a way for people to fall in love with tap water so that they actually prefer it to drinking bottled water? Because just, pelting people over the back of the hand, telling them stop doing that doesn't work. People don't want to. People want to be enticed or rewarded or have brand preference to do something, as opposed to legislature or hand slapping to do that. And so our goal is get people fall in love with tap water again, provide them great purified tap water. And so our primary focus has been B2B. To date, we've saved 500 million single-use plastic water bottles from oceans, lakes, rivers, and landfills.
And expense-wise, I imagine it is an efficient, cost-efficient way of providing water.
It's probably the least expensive amenity or value add that a hotel owner or a business or an educator can provide. So for roughly $5 a day, a flow water refill station will dispense an unlimited amount of flow water, within reason, but many thousands of liters. And so it's less than I used to say less than a latte. Now it's just less than a cup of coffee.
Yeah. We feel you there. Well, thank you so much. It's that aggregate effect that always, surprises people. It takes about 90% of the system to get to 25% of the awareness, and then it doubles into 50 and doubles into 100, and pretty soon we have a 200% problem that years earlier didn't seem like a problem at all. And we see that with cigarettes, as you said, and definitely are seeing that with water. Check out Drink Flow Water. Let's save our planet. Let's provide 70% of our being the best quality H2O, as the water boy said in my favorite movie. So thank you for providing that. Our new water boy, Rich Razgaitis, thank you so much for joining us on Office Hours.
Gentlemen, thank you. It's great to be here.
Rich, you bet. Great meeting you. Great having you on the show.
Keep it up. We're saving the world here. Awesome.
Fall in love with your tap water. I love that. That's yeah. You talk about a business proposition. Fall in love with your tap water.
Yeah, it was interesting because they did brand it as the best tasting. It wasn't about the purist, right? It was about, hitting people on the emotional attachment that they have to water, that they don't really care about the health aspect. They'll put cigarettes and vapes and alcohol and drugs, but taste, now we're going to get them when it's a better tasting product. So that's what I thought Rich, as a marketing person, really hit the nail on the head. Well, we got a big cleanup hitter here. This is one of my faves here. Jess in the house, Jesse Tarr. This is a pure entrepreneur, Blaine. Welcome, Jesse, to Office Hours. He's the founder of City Permit. And anyone, and I know you built your own house out there on the island, so this is going to resonate beyond belief with anyone that has done any type of work, improvement, building. It's an amazing business. Talk about someone that took the bull by the horns and said, hey, I think I can help out here. Welcome to Office Hours, Jesse.
Hey, David. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Blaine. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jesse, and I can't wait to hear how you took on City Hall.
He did, and he's continually. But let's start because obviously we pour into our community of entrepreneurs, small businesses, mid-sized businesses, and a lot of people see things that years and years historically has pissed off everybody, and it doesn't seem fair. It's a huge need. Anybody that's ever permitted anything probably said this is not right. We could do better. But nobody's ever done anything. What was it for you? Where were you at when you said, hey, I think I can fix this problem for the millions of people that are frustrated, angry, anxious, upset, just to name a few of the emotions that are usually tied to city permits, besides the loss of money?
Sure. No, I went in to pull a permit. It was a permit for a pipeline in Baltimore County. It was running from this Maryland state line all the way down through to Virginia. I remember going there, and I sat there for, it was probably like 7 hours, and they didn't get to my ticket. And they're like, well, you just have to come back tomorrow. And immediately I thought to myself, I got here right when they opened. I was one of the first numbers. What do you mean I have to come back tomorrow? I can't submit it. There's nothing that can be done now. And just repeated experiences like that, dealing with the government agencies. I found that it wasn't just like a Baltimore problem or a DC problem or an out West problem. It was everywhere. That they all had some type of just broken system where they knew they had a monopoly on the market, and whether they did 5 applications or 100 or 0, it didn't really matter to them.
Yeah. That's when we, David mentioned, we built the house here. The permitting was the most aggravating piece to that. I've got a neighbor that they've just leveled their place and they're rebuilding it, and we didn't see any activity over there for about 3 months. And I finally saw the contractor and said, "What gives?" And he said, "We've been waiting for 3 months to get the next step that we could move on." Right. And this is a small community. I mean, we which may be part of the difficulty too. But also, we were going to bring in internet access here. Again, we're up on an island. And the permitting to get the access to go from the power line, common carrier, onto our private property. It was only about 100 feet, but right. It was going to take 2.5 months minimum just to get permitting to dig a hole 14 inches deep so that we could move that 100-foot line.
Right.
It's going, are you kidding me?
Right.
So, question here, free permit estimate. How do you, and I am interested, how did you battle City Hall? How do you do what you do? Because it seems like magic to me.
Well, a lot of it is relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's people. The common denominator is there's people on the private side, there's service providers who are also people, and then you have the end product or service provider, which is the government, which is people as well. And so at first, it took years of showing up every day, and I'm there just as long as they are. I'm there before they open, and I'm there when they close. And I'm in the lobby. I'm working on my laptop, and hey, Jess, how you doing? Hey, wow, you're still here. It's 6:30. Go home. No, I got to get this work done. And so I think they saw that drive and that persistence and that consistency. And then when they would speak, I think one of the really frustrating things for the government officials is they're regurgitating the same information over and over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And it's like a different language. So when someone comes in and they don't speak that language, they have to really dumb it down and take their time, and they're getting, well, what's a plat and what's a land survey and what do you mean structural has to approve? There's nothing structural. And so just to get a simple explanation out that might take, talking to me a minute, 30 seconds, it might take 15 minutes with somebody that doesn't know the lingo. And so I found that the more I would go, I was able to develop relationships with people. We're able to find out about their personal lives, bring brownies on Friday, things of that nature. And we actually really start to develop a connection with these reviewers to now, a lot of times they'll reach out to us and they'll say, hey, I really don't want to hold this for comments. You just need to fix these 2 things. If you can get this back to me by today at 3 or by tomorrow by 4, I'll approve it. And that saves our customers weeks, if not months, depending on what the nature of the comment is. And so it was really just a persistent showing up day after day, year in and year out, so that we could get to know these people and understand what they're looking for and how to better provide that to them.
And Jesse, your business is not only based on relationships, but really important core values that seem to me to resonate with your background of being of service, as you were a Marine. And Blaine and I both thank you for your service, but you're not only a veteran-owned company, you hire veterans because some of the things that we have from being in the service are transparency, accountability, discipline, extremely result-driven, honor, and community. And, looking at the values of the company, obviously being a Marine, most of those are pounded into you daily. But yet they work, right? Yeah. They work and they work in a business aspect. For you, do you find that those values of your company, the core values, were really instilled by the core? And how important was the core for you to establish those core values?
I think so. I mean, I definitely borrowed several of them. Honor, courage, commitment is the United States Marine Corps, and they were definitely instilled by the Marines. My experience in the Marines, the leadership training that I got, the ability to overcome adversity, make a decision when you don't have all the information, but a good decision now is better than a great decision never, and being results driven, mission accomplishment. I tell the team all the time, we're hired by people because they're entrusting us to give them a better overall experience. And then our other customer indirectly is the government agency. A lot of times, we do make mistakes here and there as well. We're not perfect. And they don't call my employees. They say, Jesse, what the heck's going on? You guys know better than this. Why is this person asking me this question? And so I drill into our staff daily. We have pop quizzes. We have activities, team building, so that it really is a team environment. You really do take pride in what you do. I tell them all the time, I never was a little boy and I was like, wow, I can't wait to grow up and be a permit expediter. That's gonna be but it's a vehicle and we provide a great service. And so take pride in what you do. Even if you're only going to be here for a year or 2 years and move on to the next thing, take pride in what you do, because there's a lot of people in this business, unfortunately. The construction business has kind of a bad rap in some areas, shady and people not delivering on what they said. So if you could just separate yourself by operating with integrity at every interaction, I mean, you're just going to be leagues and leagues ahead of the competition. People are going to respect that.
Yeah, the idea of being a good one. I mean, Siddhartha. I mean, we go back to that classic book. Yeah. Sweep the pathway, chop wood, carry water. Whatever you're doing, do it with integrity. Do it to the highest standard that you're capable of doing it. Be a good one. Whatever the being a good one is. And I was struck here, Jesse, and I love this. You mentioned the language of the of the permitting agency as an example. Conversation is the lifeblood of all relationship. Yes. And I would go so far as to say that the conversation is the relationship. We don't have conversations about relationships. The conversation is the relationship. Right. And most people don't pay attention to the quality of the conversation they're having with the other party. And part of that quality is being able to speak their language in a way that resonates with them. And it goes right directly to that core of experience that you're talking about.
Right.
And if you can tap into how can I give you the best experience of interacting with me through the mechanism of conversation, all of a sudden we now have a playing field here that can be a very interesting playing field where win-win-win-win
Right.
can come into play.
Right.
The service that you had in the Corps instilled some of that. But I've also got a hazard a guess here that where you are in your life right now, there have been other things that have informed that, such that it is actually core, no pun intended here, to how you operate in life.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested if you could share a little bit of that journey.
Sure. Yeah. When I graduated college, I went to school at FIU in Miami, and I had a degree, and I graduated. I went to work for Geico back in the DC metro area at their headquarters. Yeah. And I was working, I was doing really well. But I felt like I did everything I was supposed to do. I went to school, I got the degree, I got the good job with benefits, and I was broke. I was living at home and I was broke. And so I started on this quest of school's not really for me. I squeaked through and made it, but how do I find something where I can add value without having to go back and get some type of professional degree or vocational certification? And I discovered bartending, and then this kind of fell into my lap as a side gig. And then I was good at it, and I took it seriously, and I was researching. One of the things, to your point about conversation, whenever a government official, say a zoning technician, would educate me on something, I would have a notebook and I would be taking notes, and they say, "Wow, you're writing down what I'm saying." I said, "Well, yeah, you're taking time out of your day to teach me, and I don't want to be asking you the same thing 2 weeks down the road."
Yeah.
And then the next time when I come to them, I might have a follow-up question, but it's a compound or an advanced level question. "Hey, I remember when you told me about this, mixed use, it has to be 70% occupied, but what about this other 30%? And does this use still play?" And they'd be impressed. And then they want to teach me more. And I would endeavor on learning things on my own. And they really respected that. I'm taking time to educate myself, not just having my hand out and asking for things. So I think the journey of being an entrepreneur is filled with setbacks and challenges, both personally and professionally. And just maximizing the time that you have with people, especially with people that want to help you. You have to take advantage of that, and you have to be sincere and genuine.
Yeah, and I think you have to put in the work, be more interested than interesting, which is from the time I met you, Jesse. It's absolutely a foundational principle, and to create a system to access those notes and to do that and to build a one has ever been frustrated or is looking to pull permits, citypermit.us. It's growing quickly in metropolitan areas, and it's an incredible business and truly a testament to our country and to our heroes like Jesse Tarr. Thanks for joining us on Office Hours.
Thanks so much, David. Thank you, Blaine. It was a
Well, what you're up to, Jesse, that's great stuff.
Keep it up, man. Call me if you need help.
You can take him on City Hall. This is good.
Thanks.
Call me if you need help, man. I'm happy to coach. Thanks. Awesome. I love seeing how our system's not perfect, but it's only in America type of story, right? It's just he went to college, he was in our military, he worked for a big conglomerate like Geico, right? And then he figures it out, and not only is he making money on his own, but he's providing an incredible service, a very co-creative service of value that all of us, especially you and I, would have definitely loved to use.
Well, I also, just given your charter of having 1 billion people be happy, his is to have 1 billion families be touched by what they're doing. Which it's kind of like, let's bring this together.
Exactly. Yeah, it's one way I never thought of. But what's your takeaway for the day? What great group of guests.
I'm going to land on conversation with this. What Jesse was talking about really struck a chord with me, and I take it back to Bruce. Bruce was willing to have a conversation with the unknown, and it's the quality of that conversation that makes a difference. And when you start thinking about it in that kind of a way, Rich is doing the same thing also. what kind of a conversation can we bring to the marketplace around water in such a way that we start reducing the unintended consequences of our aversion to drinking tap water? And it's a conversation. You speak a language that begins to tap into that experience. What do people resonate with? And it's not data that carries the day, it's connection. And the conversation is the relationship. I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Well, I love that. And mine's aligned with that in a different way. As a business coach, as someone who tries to simplify things through deep conversation with others. It's interesting because we have this emotional attachment to instant gratification, which means there's a huge value in expediting or clearing interference is, to me, the methodology or modality of expediting things. And because we have such a emotional attachment to fast, to instant, it's really an opportunity when people can clear that interference to expedite the process or grieving process, as Bruce has helped with his poetry and his memoirs. It's to help people expedite the grieving process. And he had an instant clearing with him when he really worked on clearing the interference of the grief when his first wife passed. Rich is working diligently to solve that problem as well, with what is absolutely one of the core needs of survival: water, food, sleep, and air. I tell people when they say, what should I prioritize? I said, well, let's start with water, food, sleep, and air, making sure you have the highest quality water, food, sleep, and air. And you'll be amazed how much of everything else takes care of itself. And he's expediting that. And then, of course, it came to fruition in a business sense with Jesse, because basically, a business opportunity for everyone, knowing the extreme emotional attachment that we have to instant gratification, is if something takes a long time and is frustrating because of it, then we know we have an opportunity if we can figure out how to expedite it with those conversations. And that's exactly what everyone's doing. And so ours tied together beautifully. And so if you're looking to be an entrepreneur or business person, look for stuff that takes a long time and figure out a way to expedite it. There'll be a quantitative value because you're clearing the interference or emotional aspect, resistance. Meanwhile, speaking of conversations, every Thursday, I'm blessed to have a conversation with you, learn from you. You never surprise me with your genius, brilliance, and friendship. Our relationship is one, like Bruce has, that I just appreciate and wanted to acknowledge you and everything that you do. And it's, it's early for us on the West Coast, but we get to serve the whole world. So it's easier to do at 5 a.m. most of the time. So thank you for doing that, for pouring into everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you fly safe. I know you're heading off to New York today. I'm flying out to Lexington, Kentucky tomorrow. I'm doing some
nice
hospital system there over the weekend, group of CEOs and docs. So
nice.
We're both making a difference continuously and expeditiously.
I love it. Well, unless I get to be with Jay Shetty, James Clear. We're going to be in Monterrey, Mexico. So I go New York with the family for Veterans Day weekend, and then leave Monday for Monterey to meet up with Jay Shetty and James Clear. So I'll give them a big hello for you. Learn.
Absolutely. James Clear.
One of our faves. Yep. Learn.blainebartlett.com/MLMM. My mentor, the Mindset Mastermind, will change your life. I guarantee it. Thank you, Blaine. Say hi to your beautiful wife.
You got it. And big kiss to Julie, and Marissa's going to be going with you, I'm assuming.
She lives in New York.
She lives in New York. That's right. That's
right. Mia and Miles, they're all coming. So it should be good.
Great. Oh, that's going to be fun. Take care, buddy.
You got it, brother. Take care. See you next week. All right, everyone. It's that simple. It's Thursday. Remember, most importantly, if you need anything, if it's free, it's we. Email me, David@dmeltzer.com. My first name is David, at my first initials D. Last name's Meltzer, like seltzer with an M.com. David@dmeltzer.com. If it's free, it's we. Email me books, guides, and exercises, replays, etc. More importantly, be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.